authorship, and he has authored quite a number of books. Out of the books that he has authored, two personally stood out to me. Number one was An-Nahw al-Muyassar, Arabic grammar made easy. And number two, which solidified one of my dreams to follow his path in studying in the Islamic University, is his book, Dream Interpretations According to the Quran and the Sunnah. Number three, Shaykh in his Juhud al-Jabbal, al-Mushahad, al-Mahsus, is that he called his parents for almost 20 years. After he accepted Islam, he called them to Islam for almost 20 years. And his parents accepted Islam, showing how much patience a person needs in this path of calling towards Allah Azza wa Jal and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're honored to have a living legend amongst the brothers and the du'at and the graduates and the scholars who have passed through the halls of Al-Jami'a Islamiyya. فليتفضل الشيخ مشكورا مأجورا. These are for the recordings. Yes, indeed.
وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be on His last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. I pray that Allah gives success to the Ummah, success to our brothers and sisters and parents dying in Gaza. That we be a part of their struggle and to share in their efforts to protect Masjid al-Aqsa, because that's the greatest part of their struggle. Maintaining the land of the rest of what is known as Israel, or the Palestine, is not as important as Masjid al-Aqsa. And as we move into the last phase of Ramadan, with them, to have sympathy and empathy for them. And the best way that that can happen is to hold on firmly to Sirat al-Mustaqim. That path which Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam tread. He walked that path. And we are instructed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His Messenger to worship Allah, asking Him to keep us firmly on that path, Sirat al-Mustaqim. I would just like to share with you a thought about that path, which we today, Muslims in general around the world, have left. We have walked away from Sirat al-Mustaqim. And that can be seen in our adherence to cultural Islamic practices and we refuse to follow Islamic culture based on what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam has told us. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the fast that we are all supposed to be engaged in. We're all fasting here today. However, that fast that we are doing is not the fast of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's the cultural Islamic fast. It is the time of the year when people eat more than they eat in the rest of the year. Right? Suhoor, iftar. Is suhoor the suhoor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is that what he encouraged us to do? Engorge ourselves, eat as much as we can. What he said in terms of suhoor, ni'ma suhoor al-mu'min at-tamr. The best suhoor of the true believer are dates. 1, 3, 5 dates and water or some other liquid. Glass. Not the 3-course meals that we are eating. for suhoor, we are eating as much as we possibly can. Which means that we fast without experiencing an empty stomach. This is reality. When I accepted Islam back in 1972, before most of you were born, some were born then, but most of you weren't born then. In Toronto, Canada. And Ramadan was like a week or two away. They told me about Ramadan, fasting 30 days. I was afraid. I became scared. What am I going to do? I've never fasted before in my life. I was 25 years old. How am I going to fast? 30 days. My friends who were in the Masjid at the time, from different Muslim lands, like Kenya, Egypt, Pakistan, Morocco, immigrants to Canada, they told me, don't worry. Don't worry. I said, but I have never fasted before. How am I going to manage to do this? And this is a pillar of Islam, an obligation. He said, don't worry. Our kids fast. And we, as adults, we gain weight in Ramadan. After 30 days of fasting, I said, what? Huh? How? How do you gain weight after fasting for 30 days? They said, that's how we do Ramadan, I said, suhoor, they said, eat as much as you can. Iftar, eat as much as you can. So our suhoor has become a 3-course meal. We're eating as much as we can. The sweetest and the most luxurious of the fruits and the biryani and the, what all names that you have for the foods, I'm not sure. Kenya, palau, I don't know. Right? You eat as much as you can. So naturally, if you're eating like that, and you don't complete the digestion until just before Maghrib, now your body is working on the food, you've stuffed your stomach. So it doesn't just eat it all up at that time. You become tired and you want to sleep, and your body works on the food, breaking it down and absorbing it throughout the day till after Asr, when digestion finally ends. But then here comes Maghrib. Then you double up what you ate for Fajr. You now eat twice as much for Iftar. So how do we empathize with our brothers and sisters and children who are starving to death, dying, 10s, 20s, every day in Gaza? How? We cannot connect with them. They're in another world and we're in another world. So the information that we get, we just look at the numbers. Oh, it's bad. 5, 10, 20, we can't empathize with them. Because the fast that we're doing is not the fast of Sirat al-Mustaqim. So I would implore you for the rest of this month, fast the way the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Do it right. Do it right for the sake of Allah, and make the intention to pray regularly for our brothers and sisters in Gaza, and do whatever we can with regards to sending help, whatever channel we find which is legitimate, we try to do it. Let's make a difference this Ramadan, at least in trying to get ourselves back on Sirat al-Mustaqim. The other point that I would like to, or like us to reflect on, I was told that most of the people here are young people in school. How many of you are in school, young people? Put your hand up, let me see if this is true. Who are in school, currently studying in school or university. Oh, still a minority. This is not the crowd which I was told. You're a different crowd. Anyway, I can still ask the same question to the majority then who have left school, gone into the workforce, etc., so that we can understand what lies ahead. I want you to raise your hands now. Raise your hands. Point your fingers. Okay. Raise it high. Raise the hands high. Okay. Now I want you to repeat after me. Wallahi. Louder. Tallahi. Billahi. I never cheated on any test or examination while I was in school. I never cheated on any test or examination while I was in school. How many we have here now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. About 25 people had their hands up. How many people are in here now? How many hundreds are in here now? What does that tell us? And the Prophet ﷺ said what? Man ghashana falaysa minna. Laysa minna meaning not a true Muslim on Sirat al-Mustaqim. And this is what we became, and those who are coming after us will be like us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah doesn't change the condition of a people until they change themselves. So as an ummah here, and you are a sample of Kenya. You are a sample of Kenya. And we always talk about the corrupt politicians. Corrupt politicians. But if you got the position that they had, would you be any different? So then how? How do we turn this around? How do we change this? How do we live Islam in such a way that non-Muslims would be impressed, would respect us, feel that we are exceptional people? Because this is what Islam is supposed to make us. See, unfortunately, we have gotten caught up in rituals and we lost the essence, the core. The rituals that we do, like Quran. Normally, first day of Ramadan, we take the Quran off the shelf where it's been the whole year since last Ramadan. Blow off the dust and then we start reading the Quran. And most of us read the Quran in Arabic, but we don't understand anything of it. We don't know Arabic. So we only parrot the Quran. You know what a parrot is, right? When you speak to a parrot, you say, "How are you?" What does the parrot say? "I'm fine." Huh? The parrot doesn't say "I'm fine." What does he say? "How are you?" That's what we have become. Parrots. Quran parrots. And is that going to change anything? When Allah told us, describing the Quran right from the very beginning of the Quran, second chapter, He described the Quran saying it is hudan lil muttaqeen. It is guidance for those who fear Allah. That's what the Quran is about. The Quran is about guidance. And we can't be guided by something we don't understand. So we are just doing a ritual. The Sahaba said, we used to learn the Quran 10 verses at a time. 10 verses at a time. And we didn't move on to the next 10 until we understood all that was in that first 10, and we tried to implement it, then we went on. So at that rate, when the Prophet ﷺ died, the vast majority of the Sahaba had not memorized the whole Quran. We had the scribes who were writing. some who memorized more than others, who stayed around the Prophet ﷺ, memorizing and understanding. Few. But the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of Sahaba had not memorized the Quran. They were busy applying and implementing the Quran. That's what they were busy doing. So again, though we always describe the Quran in our lectures in Ramadan as one of the pillars of Ramadan, because Allah said, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed. So for the remainder of this month, the last third, let us make a new intention to read the Quran with understanding. Means you need a translation in Swahili or English, and read as much as you can, understanding and reflecting on what you have read. Can we make that intention? And then the Quran will have real meaning in our lives and will affect us in the remainder of the year. And we should keep picking up the Quran and reading it throughout the year. But reading and understanding, reflecting and acting. This is Sirat al-Mustaqim. And I pray Allah puts us all on Sirat al-Mustaqim, protects us from Shaitan al-Rajim, because Shaitan will come and find 1,000,000 different reasons why you don't have time to read the Quran with understanding. That's the reality. Shaitan is busy. And you'd be surprised how busy Shaitan is. Just one thing I noticed amongst the cultural Islamic practices is that we all know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, don't eat or drink with your left hand. Don't eat or drink with your left hand. Everybody knows that, right? However, every part of the Muslim world that I have visited, I find Muslims drinking with their left hand. Not so many eating with their left hand, but drinking with their left hand. They will pick up the glass with their left hand, and they will put their hand under it with their right hand and drink. Or some people just point their finger on it, and then they drink. Why is that? Why is that so common? Shaitan told them that if you put your left hand while you're eating, if you put your left hand on the glass, it's going to soil the glass. isn't it? The grease from the food you're eating, right? If you put your right hand you're eating with, right? Not eating with the left, you're doing the right thing. But now that right hand is covered in grease. So to go and pick up the glass, you're making the glass greasy. So better to pick it up with the left hand and then give it some support with the right hand. But what you're actually doing is drinking with the left hand. Exactly what Rasulullah ﷺ said, don't do. Don't do it. Is that so hard not to do it? Something so simple as that? Across the Muslim world, you find it. I even had one brother from Pakistan tell me, there's a hadith. Maulana so-and-so told us there is a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said to drink with your left hand. I said, I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe somebody said it to him and he just assumed it was a hadith. That is the state. Little things and big things. And when we go from the various requirements of Islam, one after the other, we find that we have failed. We need to take Islam seriously. Udkhulu fi silmi kafa. Go into Islam, Allah commands us. Go into Islam completely. Don't put one foot in and leave one foot out. Go in completely. Be full-time Muslims, not part-time Muslims. So as we move into the last 10, beware of the cultural Muslim practices of the last 10. The last 10 has in it Laylatul Qadr. The cultural Muslim identifies Laylatul Qadr as the 27th, and that's what he is focused on. He or she is focused on the 27th. The other nights don't matter. It's just that 27th. So the Masjid on the 27th is people on top of people, packed out into the streets. 27th, you can't miss the 27th. But it is not established that the 27th is the fixed date. It's amongst the odd nights. But which one exactly every year? It's not like that. Even in some places, I heard it said that there is an event called Jumu'atul Wida. You know Hajjul Wida. Hajjul Wida, you know, that's the farewell Hajj. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made Hajj, that was the farewell to the Ummah. So what I heard from Pakistan was Jumu'atul Wida. So I said, something, all my studies in Medina, I never came across that. They said, Jumu'atul Wida is the last Friday in Ramadan. If you catch that last Friday, paradise is yours. Where did they get that from? Shaitan. Shaitan is busy. putting in people's minds shortcuts. Everybody wants a shortcut. So shaitan is very eager and anxious to offer the shortcuts. And those shortcuts are off Sirat al-Mustaqim. You know, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ drew a line in the dust, I'm sure you've heard that hadith. Scholars have come and told you about the hadith, where on one occasion, the Prophet ﷺ drew a line in the dirt, in the dust, in the sand. One straight line. And then he drew lines off in all the other directions. And he said that straight line is Sirat al-Mustaqim. And those lines on the outside, they are the lines with a devil at the head of each one. Shaitan's army are heading those other lines. There's plenty of them. So my brothers and sisters, beware. Allah has taught us through His Messenger to call on Allah in our prayers saying, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, every day. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Because it is the greatest ni'mah that we could have, to be mustaqim. Ourselves, whatever we're doing in Ramadan as ibadah, is this helping us get on Sirat al-Mustaqim or not? If it's not, then it's better to avoid it. Leave it. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us the life to be here together, to be here as an ummah. I'm from Jamaica, the other side of the world. Allah brought me here. Make dua for me too, inshallah. We're all in the same boat. May Allah accept our Islam and purify our hearts and our minds from the shirk of shaitan. These are just a few thoughts. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, whether related to these thoughts or unrelated, maybe I can try to help. To be honest, I don't have the energy to give a talk. My apologies if you're coming to hear me give a talk, like you've seen me on YouTube or whatever, you know. So you're expecting me to give a talk, but my batteries are on the lowest level. The brothers have loaded my itinerary from the first day I stepped off the plane. And alhamdulillah, Allah bless them. They want the best. But that's the reality. I had the choice between avoiding coming to see you altogether, excusing myself, or coming and sharing a few thoughts and answering a few questions. So I chose at least to answer a few of your questions. Go ahead, please. Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm sure the debate about this question will never end. You know, I could give you general advice and say, look at the evidence. People say, he said, they said, you said, I said. But what is the right way is not what people said. It's what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said or he did that we are certain about. So the best way to resolve that is to look at the evidence. So if you have a narration from Aisha, for example, where she said the Prophet ﷺ used to pray for, and she didn't clarify whether it was 2 and 2 or 4 straight, and 4 and 3. If somebody can show you in Bukhari or Muslim or the books, the authentic books of hadith, here it is, then you go with it. If somebody can show you where one of the close people around the Prophet ﷺ said that you should pray 21, and you see it and you can connect it to classical books of hadith, authentic, etc., you're certain, then in that case, if you find it in both places, you can do this or do that. But if you only find it in one place, then that's the one that is better to do. But if somebody said, what if I prayed more? Is Taraweeh and the issue of Taraweeh, Tahajjud, Qiyamul Layl, and so many different names, in the end it's for the same thing. But some people end up praying both Qiyamul Layl and Taraweeh, and but the point is that if you find that you want to pray more, what do you think? Would that be wrong? I mean, you're not going and tell other people, go and pray more. But instead of just 8 and 3, you prayed 12 and 3. 4, 4, and an extra 4, and then 3. If you just did it personally yourself, you felt you wanted to pray more, and the Prophet ﷺ never instructed you only pray this amount, then there's no harm there. As long as you don't go out trying to propagate to the people, listen, to pay 12 and 3, that's 15, is better than praying 11. Yeah. There's a personal level where we can do more. If we can do more, it is permissible to do more, as long as you don't try to promote it to other people that this is better. Because then now you are saying you know better than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, I hope the point is clear, inshallah. Sort of.
There's a question through one of our organizers. The question is, the madrasa system is not nurturing love of Allah in the students. Can you advise on how we should upgrade or change the approach?
In case you didn't hear it, this is a question from one of the team that helps to run events and have events connected to the Masjid, etc. That the madrasa system is not nurturing love in the kids. What would my advice be? My advice is that we should revamp the madrasa system if it's not nurturing love. Wherever I go, one of the general points that I suggest to Muslims who are engaged in educating the community, etc., is don't hit the children to learn Quran. Don't do it. Beating children to learn Quran is not the way. Even though it's become a norm. This is one of the cultural practices again. And if you go on Google and you Google Muslim woman beats son to death for not memorizing Quran, you will find it. It happened in Canada. A Muslim sister, originally from Pakistan, in Montreal, who sends her son to Quran school, and of course the Quran teacher gives him so much Quran that he has to memorize. And she, in anger, after telling him to memorize and time again, and he didn't memorize, she whacked him with a stick in the house. I don't know how big the stick was or whatever, but she whacked him until he died. She was put in jail in Canada. That's shaitan. The idea of beating children to learn Quran, it came from shaitan, even though, yes, in the madrasas, I talk to groups of teachers from madrasas, and when I tell them, don't hit the children to learn Quran, they say, you cannot teach without the stick. They will not learn without the stick. We were beaten and we're okay. This is the mentality. This is the culture. And this is shaitan. Reality is that the Prophet ﷺ's little slave boy who was adopted by him as his own son, Anas ibn Malik, he said, the Prophet ﷺ never even raised his voice on me. Never hit. Never raised his voice. That is the way. That is Sirat al-Mustaqim. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that the elders should be gentle and kind with the little ones. When the Prophet ﷺ saw one of the companions, when one of the companions saw the Prophet ﷺ kiss a child, and he proudly said, I have so many kids and I've never kissed one of them. I'm a real man. Prophet ﷺ said, Man la yarham, la yurham. Whoever is not merciful, gentle, kind, will not find that mercy, gentleness, and kindness from Allah. So yeah, we should remove the stick. And you know, the West, they used to beat too. They used to beat. But eventually they realized that it didn't work. So they stopped. And they went overboard. They went overboard in the other direction. But till today, you can go in Canada to teachers' colleges, and you will find over the doors as you go into the teachers' colleges, it would say, make learning fun. Make learning fun. If you can make learning fun, kids will enjoy it. But the Quran teachers will say, nonsense. How can you make learning the Quran fun? There is a way. You may not know it, but there is a way, and it's on you to find out how to do that. Learning educational techniques can put you in a position to do that. It's possible. Shaitan got in the works because Muhammad ﷺ didn't beat anybody to learn the Quran. The Sahaba were not reported to beat anybody to learn the Quran. The Tabi'een weren't reported to have beaten anybody to learn the Quran. So it means that the original message that was sent down was, don't hit the kids to learn the Quran. It didn't say you can never hit them, right? That's another issue. But to learn the Quran, no. So that is the Sirat al-Mustaqim. And I know in the Gambia, where the headquarters of the International Open University is based, right? The university which I set up, and which has branches here, learning centers here in Kenya, and I would hope that some of you would go and look into it, because we're teaching modern subjects as well as Sharia from an Islamic perspective. So you learn business administration from an Islamic perspective, IT, banking and finance, psychology, all of these subjects taught by Muslims from an Islamic perspective. Anyway, the point is that this university strives to return back to the way of the early generations, where Islam is integrated into the curriculum. And we need to do that. We need to bring Islam into everything that is being taught, so that morality becomes an important part of our curriculums. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to perfect for you the highest, the peak of moral behavior. He summed up all of Islam, 5 pillars of Islam, 6 pillars of Iman, everything into morality. Morality. And this is what we have lost. In the beginning, when I asked everybody to stick their hand up, and all the hands went down except a few, that was because morality was not taught. What you were taught was to get the highest marks you can so you can graduate and move forward, and so you were following Machiavelli. This is an Italian writer who was an advisor to one of the princes or kings of Italy, and advised him that the ends justify the means. That was his principle. And where did that come from? A book of Revelation? No, that came from Shaitan. Like the people who, after 9/11, I had some discussions with some people from Qaeda, and they were argumentative discussions, because I said what you guys did was wrong. They said, no, what we did, do you know how many people accepted Islam after 9/11 in America? Thousands. It's true. It wasn't a lie. What they said was true. Thousands accepted Islam after 9/11. But, so, okay, we go and do more 9/11s around the world to get thousands more to accept Islam? Of course not. Of course not. The ends, that's from the power of Allah. The means was from Shaitan. The fact that people took satanic means, and Allah, in His almightiness, took out good ends. No, that's Allahu Akbar. That's all we can say, Allahu Akbar. But 9/11 was evil. Even a friend of mine who accepted Islam, he told me that once he got jailed, he was put in jail. And while he was in jail, one of the guys who was in jail with him, he got some marijuana. What do you call marijuana in? Huh? What? Bungie. Okay. He got some bungie. And he started to smoke up the bungie. And when he was good and high on bungie, he turned to my friend and asked him, "Do you know about Allah?" My friend said, no, what is Allah? So he went and said, Allah is the true God. My friend, when he left the jail, went and researched and became a Muslim. So what do we do with that? We encourage people to get high and bungy and then tell them about Allah. Since when you talk to them when they're not high, they're not listening to you. So get them high and then tell them about Allah. A'udhu billah. Of course not. So, no, be certain that beating children to learn the Quran is not the prophetic way. It didn't come from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and if it didn't come from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it means it came from Shaitan. Of course, it's difficult for you to go to the average Quran teacher and tell him, hey, you know, you're following Shaitan. He's not going to accept that. Right? But this is reality. And we need to stop it. We don't need for the West to come in and, you know, because they already prohibited beating kids. So they have to come in and tell us, change our laws and tell us you can't beat kids anymore. You know, like female genital mutilation. They've had to come and tell us. When? Yeah. This is the, okay, our brother has pointed out another source. But it goes back to Shaitan anyway, you know. But another source that some individuals, Quran teachers, justify the beating of the children because when the angel Gabriel first began to give revelation to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Iqra, read." He said, "Ma ana biqari, I don't read. I don't know how to read." So what did the angel Gabriel do? He squeezed him and said, "Iqra." So this is why it's okay to beat the kids. From Shaitan. Shaitan is busy. So anyway, that is something we do need to correct. As an ummah, we don't need to wait until others come to tell us. We should try to make learning pleasant for our children. In the Gambia, where the headquarters of the International Open University is, there was a case of a madrasa burnt down. They couldn't figure out who did it, who caused it. Then another one burnt down. And they still couldn't figure out who's burning down the madrasas. By the third madrasa, which was burnt down, they finally figured it out. It was the students. The students. They were being brutalized in the madrasa. And the only way they could see out of it was to burn this place down. So many of my adult friends told me, well, when I used to go to the madrasa and I ran. I fled the madrasa. And when you go on the website, which is called apostatesfromislam.com, Murtaddeen, apostates from Islam.com. And you read the stories of the people who left Islam. Almost every one of them says, and the Quran teacher used to beat us. You see it time and time and time again. So it's something which is in our power to change, then we must change it. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyiru biyadihi. Whoever amongst you sees evil, then we should change it with our hands. If we're in a position of authority, means we stop it. Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I know there are plenty of questions that we need to ask our Honorable Shaykh. However, due to time constraints and رأفة للشيخ بحاله وبما ضغطنا عليه for the packed schedule that he has, we kindly ask you to forgive us to stop the Q&A session, and perhaps if would like to see the Shaykh again, he will be available tomorrow for the Quran competition currently ongoing at Makradara grounds, and he'll be the main guest tomorrow inshallah. It's at Sarani grounds, apologies, at Sarani grounds tomorrow inshallah. He'll be visiting فليحضر الجميع, and attendance is free بإذن الله. It will also be graced by His Excellency the Governor of the county of Mombasa. Lastly, Imam al-Tirmidhi has reported في صحيحه بطريقه إلى سليمان التيمي عن أبي عثمان النهدي عن أسامة بن زيد حب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, that Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, من صنع إليه معروف فقال لصاحبه جزاك الله خيرا فقد أبلغ بالثناء. Whosoever has goodness done to him, like the Shaykh visiting us and giving us words of wisdom and answering our questions, it is ma'ruf. And we say جزاك الله خيرا فقد أبلغ في الثناء. This person has gone to the ends of the lengths in praising and thanking that person. Shaykh al-Fadil, جزاك الله خيرا. And we kindly ask, because of protocol issues, that you allow us to leave with the Shaykh, and then everybody else can leave after. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا.